Angus stood in front of Unit 47 at the Pattaya storage complex, holding what he thought was the lease agreement for his cafe investment, the cafe he had invested 310,000 pounds sterling into, roughly 12 million baht, the cafe that Maya had been managing for 8 months while preparing for its grand opening. But Unit 47 wasn't a cafe. It was a 10 by 12 storage space containing nothing except some cardboard boxes with random Thai paperwork, a few old cafe furnishings that looked like they had come from a junkyard, and absolutely no evidence of the legitimate business. Angus had been funding for the better part of a year. The storage facility manager spoke broken English, but made the situation clear. Unit had been rented 3 months ago by a Thai woman matching Maya's description, paid for 6 months upfront in cash, used occasionally to store items but never for any business purpose. The manager had never heard of any cafe, had never seen permits or construction, knew nothing about the major renovation project that had supposedly been consuming Angus's money for months. Angus tried calling Maya. Number disconnected. Line messages unanswered. Email bouncing back. The lawyer she had introduced him to, Kun Som Chai, who had supposedly handled all legal paperwork, also unreachable, his office address leading to a serviced office building where he had never had permanent space, just occasional day rentals for meeting with clients like Angus, who needed to believe they were working with legitimate legal representation. The permits Maya had shown him, the contracts with suppliers, the renovation invoices, the business registration documents, Angus pulled them all out now, examined them with eyes cleared of the trust and excitement that had clouded his judgment for 8 months. The documents looked official, but contained inconsistencies he should have noticed. Wrong government stamps, business registration numbers that didn't match Thai format, addresses that didn't exist, signatures that varied across supposedly related documents. 310,000 pounds. 43 years of working, building pubs in Glasgow from nothing, selling them at peak value, retiring with nest egg that should have sustained comfortable life until death. Now reduced to 90,000 pounds, just enough to return to Scotland and rent flat, nowhere near enough to rebuild the retirement he had imagined when he arrived in Thailand 9 months ago. Standing in front of the storage unit that was supposed to be his cafe, Angus understood he had been scammed completely, professionally, by operations sophisticated enough to fool man who had built successful business chain, who had negotiated with banks and suppliers and landlords for decades, who had believed his business experience made him immune to fraud. He had been targeted not despite his confidence but because of it, selected for his net worth and his belief that he could recognize legitimate business opportunity, manipulated through professional competence rather than obvious seduction, destroyed through staged business investment rather than crude financial extraction. This is the story of how business acumen became liability, how competence became camouflage for fraud, how 8 months of careful business development revealed itself as 8 months of systematic theft disguised as entrepreneurial partnership. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here! Angus McLean arrived in Thailand at 60 years old with 420,000 pounds sterling in liquid assets, monthly pension providing comfortable income, and confidence born of 43 years, building businesses from concepts to profitable operations. He had started his first pub in Glasgow at 27 with borrowed money and relentless work, had expanded to 3 locations over 20 years, had sold the chain at peak market value for some that made early retirement possible. His divorce had been expensive, but not devastating. His ex-wife Margaret had kept their house. He had kept majority of business sale proceeds. They had divided assets relatively amicably, after acknowledging their marriage had died years before its legal end. Their children were grown, established in their own lives, called occasionally but weren't particularly interested in Angus's retirement plans beyond ensuring he wasn't planning to burden them financially. At 60, Angus was lonely, but not desperately so. Financially comfortable, but not wealthy. Confident in his business judgment, but aware he knew nothing about Thailand beyond what expat forums and YouTube videos had shown him. He chose Pattaya specifically because it had established expat community, English-speaking services, beach lifestyle he had romanticized during Scottish winters, and reputation for being a place where Western money could create comfortable life even on modest budgets. His plan was methodical. Rent condo for 6 months while learning the area, investigate business opportunities that might generate income and give him purpose, potentially meet Thai women for companionship, but avoid romantic entanglements that seemed primarily financial, build life that combined leisure with light business activity that would keep him engaged and mentally active. The first 2 months, Angus executed this plan carefully. He rented one-bedroom condo in Pradamnak area for 25,000 baht monthly, about 550 pounds, expensive by Thai standards but comfortable and close to beach. He joined expat business networking group called Pattaya Entrepreneurs, where foreign business owners and investors met monthly to discuss opportunities and challenges of doing business in Thailand. He ate at different restaurants evaluating operations, walked beach road observing tourist patterns, researched Thai business law regarding foreign ownership and investment structures, talked with established expats about legitimate opportunities versus common scams. Everything he did was informed by his pub business experience. He understood customer flow, operational costs, profit margins, how to evaluate whether business concept was viable or fundamentally flawed. He was confident but not arrogant, careful but not paranoid, exactly the kind of foreign investor who seemed to have tools to navigate Thailand successfully while avoiding traps that caught naive tourists and desperate pensioners. Angus met Maya at the third Pattaya Entrepreneurs meeting he attended. She was 26, Thai but educated partly in Singapore, spoke perfect English with barely any accent, dressed in business casual that suggested professional competence rather than seduction. She introduced herself as consultant helping foreign investors navigate Thai business regulations, explained she worked with lawyers and accountants to structure compliant business entities, had helped several expats establish legitimate operations in Pattaya. What distinguished Maya from other Thai women Angus had observed was her professional demeanor. She wasn't flirtatious or performing helplessness, wasn't seeking sponsor or foreign boyfriend, was networking at business event like any other entrepreneur seeking connections and opportunities. She gave Angus her business card, proper card with company name, contact details, professional design, and suggested they could discuss Thai business environment over coffee if he was serious about investment opportunities. Angus accepted the offer, impressed by her professionalism and grateful to meet a Thai person who seemed to understand business, rather than just performing service role or seeking financial support. They met at coffee shop, spent 2 hours discussing various business concepts. Angus had been considering small hotel, restaurant, tour company, retail shop catering to expats. Maya was knowledgeable and realistic. She explained challenges of each concept. Hotels required significant capital and had complex Thai ownership requirements. Restaurants had thin margins and high competition. Tour companies needed Thai tour licenses that were difficult for foreigners to obtain legitimately. Retail shops serving expats faced limited customer base and rental costs that made profitability challenging. The conversation was exactly what Angus needed, straight business analysis from someone who understood Thai market realities, who wasn't trying to sell him on bad ideas or steer him toward opportunities where she would profit at his expense. Maya seemed to be providing genuine consulting value, helping him think through concepts critically rather than encouraging bad investment. At the end of their meeting, Maya mentioned one opportunity she thought might suit Angus's background. Small cafe near beach serving tourists and expats, current owner wanting to sell lease and equipment, location with good foot traffic, operation that wouldn't require massive capital but could generate steady income while giving Angus business purpose and daily routine. She wasn't pushing the idea, just mentioning it as possibility worth investigating if Angus was interested in food service concept similar to his pub background. She offered to help him evaluate the opportunity if he wanted, could introduce him to current owner, could explain Thai leasehold structure that made cafe ownership viable for foreigners even though they couldn't own land. Angus was immediately interested. Cafe operation was similar enough to pub management that his experience would transfer, required less capital than hotel or large restaurant, provided the business engagement he wanted without being overwhelming project. He asked Maya to arrange introduction to current owner, said he would pay her consulting fee for helping evaluate the opportunity and potentially structuring deal if it proved worthwhile. Maya refused consulting fee. She said they were colleagues in expat business community, that helping each other was how the community functioned, that if deal proceeded and Angus wanted to compensate her later, that would be fine, but she didn't charge for initial consultations and introductions. This refusal to immediately monetize her help made Angus trust her more. She seemed to be operating on professional network principles rather than transactional extraction that characterized most Thai foreign interactions he had observed. Over the following 6 weeks, Maya and Angus spent significant time together evaluating the cafe opportunity. Maya introduced him to the current owner, a Thai man named Somchai who spoke minimal English, but who Maya translated for, who showed Angus the existing cafe operation, explained he wanted to sell because he was relocating to Bangkok for family reasons, asked reasonable price of 2 million baht, approximately 44,000 pounds, for remaining 5 years on the lease, plus all equipment and existing customer base. The cafe looked legitimate. Actual operating business with customers, located in small commercial building near beach with good foot traffic, equipment that appeared functional if dated, lease agreement that Maya reviewed and said was standard Thai format, profit margins that Somchai documented through financial records, showing modest but consistent income. Angus did his own due diligence, visited cafe multiple times, observed customer flow, talked to other business owners in the area about the location's reputation, researched typical cafe profit margins in Pattaya, calculated whether the asking price was reasonable given documented income and remaining lease term. Everything suggested this was legitimate opportunity, fairly priced, suitable for someone with his experience and interest in food service business. But the sale process revealed complications. Thai law prevented foreigners from directly leasing commercial space beyond certain duration, prevented them from registering businesses in certain categories without Thai partners who held majority ownership, created regulatory maze that made direct ownership legally impossible regardless of how much sense the business opportunity made. Maya explained the solution structure company with Thai majority owners who were trusted nominees, use lawyer to draft agreements protecting foreign investors' interests while maintaining legal Thai ownership facade, follow established patterns that thousands of expat businesses use to operate legally within Thai system that officially prohibited their direct ownership. She introduced Angus to Kun Somchai, different Somchai from the cafe owner, a lawyer with office in Pattaya who spoke decent English, who explained the legal structures professionally, who showed examples of similar arrangements he had created for other foreign investors, who seemed knowledgeable and competent in navigating Thai business law complexities. The lawyer's fees were substantial, 150,000 baht, approximately 3,300 pounds for creating company, drafting shareholder agreements, managing lease transfer, handling all legal paperwork. But the complexity of Thai business law made professional legal help necessary, and Angus had paid solicitors plenty of money setting up his pub businesses in Glasgow, understood that legal structure was foundation that protected investments. During this 6-week evaluation and structure creation period, Maya was constantly involved translating documents, explaining Thai cultural contexts Angus didn't understand, attending meetings with lawyer and current owner, managing communications, essentially functioning as his business partner and trusted advisor despite receiving no direct compensation. The relationship also became personal. Maya and Angus had dinner together multiple times, conversations ranging beyond just business topics developing friendship and mutual respect that felt genuine. Maya never made romantic advances, remained professional and appropriate, but her constant presence and competence and willingness to help without demanding payment created emotional connection alongside business partnership. Angus found himself trusting Maya completely, viewing her as invaluable resource and potential romantic interest. Once business partnership was established and romantic relationship wouldn't complicate professional collaboration. She was beautiful, intelligent, ambitious, exactly the kind of woman Angus might pursue once their business relationship transitioned from project phase to operational phase. What Angus didn't recognize was that the entire 6 weeks had been theater. The cafe owner was part of Maya's network. The operating cafe was legitimately owned by the man but was being used as convincing prop for scam. The lawyer was also part of the network, providing professional appearance while creating legally meaningless documents. Maya's refusal of payment was investment in building trust that would pay returns when real extraction began. Her professional demeanor was camouflage more effective than seduction because it appealed to Angus's self-image as businessman rather than to his loneliness or lust. 8 weeks after meeting Maya, Angus wired £220,000, approximately 5.5 million baht, to complete the cafe purchase and establish operating capital. The breakdown Maya provided was detailed: 2 million for lease and equipment, 1.5 million for renovations to upgrade cafe to appeal more to foreign customers, 1 million for operating capital to cover expenses during renovation period and first months of new operation, 1 million for permits, licenses, and legal fees. The money went to accounts. Maya and the lawyer controlled this was necessary, they explained, because Thai business law required Thai nationals to handle financial transactions for companies with majority Thai ownership, because foreign transfers directly to Angus's company account would trigger banking scrutiny and potential legal problems, because the structure they had created specifically to protect Angus's investment meant routing money through proper channels. Angus received documentation for everything: receipts for lease payment, quotes from renovation contractors, applications for updated business licenses, bank statements showing his money deposited and allocated according to planned budget. Everything appeared legitimate, organized, managed professionally by people who clearly knew what they were doing. The cafe closed for renovations. Maya managed the project, sending Angus regular photo updates of demolition and reconstruction, forwarding contractor invoices that needed payment, explaining renovation timeline and expected completion dates. Angus visited the cafe regularly, saw evidence of work being done, confirmed that money was being spent on actual improvements rather than being embezzled. During renovation period, Maya and Angus's relationship developed romantically. The transition happened naturally. Business dinners became romantic dinners. Professional collaboration became personal partnership. Friendship became relationship. Maya never asked for personal financial support, maintained her own apartment and financial independence, kept their romance separate from business partnership in ways that made Angus confident their relationship was genuine rather than financially motivated. 3 months into renovations, Maya identified opportunity to purchase the commercial building that housed the cafe. The owner wanted to sell 5 million baht, approximately £110,000, and ownership would give them control over property instead of being vulnerable to lease termination or rent increases. The building had 3 commercial units: their cafe, a small shop currently rented to Thai vendor, an empty unit they could develop a secondary income source. Maya showed Angus the financial analysis. Rental income from other 2 units would cover most of building purchase loan payments. Property appreciation in Pattaya's developing areas made real estate investment smart. Owning building eliminated lease risk and gave them valuable asset that could be sold eventually for profit. Angus consulted his lawyer Hun Somchai, who had set up the cafe company, who confirmed the building purchase was sound investment, that proper legal structure could protect Angus's interest while maintaining Thai ownership facade required by law, that this was exactly the kind of asset accumulation that successful expat businesses pursued in Thailand. Angus wired another 90,000 pounds, approximately 2.3 million baht, for a building down payment and closing costs. The money again went through Maya, and the lawyer again was documented with receipts and contracts, again appeared to be legitimate investment managed by professionals who had Angus's interests aligned with their own. 5 months after meeting Maya, Angus had invested 310,000 pounds in what he believed was thriving cafe business, on cusp of reopening and commercial property that would generate income and appreciate in value. His remaining capital was 90,000 pounds, still substantial but dramatically reduced from his starting position. He felt good about the investments. Maya had proven herself competent and trustworthy. The cafe renovation looked professional and appealing. The building purchase gave them valuable real estate in area poised for development. His business experience had identified opportunity that would provide both income and purpose for his retirement years. What Angus didn't understand was that none of it was real. The cafe renovation was minimal work performed on property. Maya's network had temporarily accessed but didn't own. The building purchase was complete fiction, supported by forged documents and a fake sale process. The lawyer was creating paperwork with no legal standing. Maya was managing elaborate theater production, where every element appeared legitimate because appearance was all that mattered, while extracting money was the only actual goal. 6 months after their first meeting, just as the cafe was supposedly approaching reopening, Maya revealed additional problems. The building purchase had hit regulatory obstacles, permits had been delayed, local officials needed additional fees, unexpected title issues required legal resolution before ownership transfer could complete. Each problem had solution, but each solution required additional money. Maya presented these problems reluctantly, seeming embarrassed that complications had arisen, assuring Angus that they were normal Thai bureaucratic issues rather than fundamental problems, showing him documentation that made each issue appear legitimate and solvable with appropriate payments and patience. Angus paid for each solution: 30,000 baht for expedited permits, 50,000 for additional legal work resolving title issues, 70,000 for mandatory building improvements required by local regulations, 40,000 for business licenses that were apparently different from licenses previously obtained. Total additional payments? 190,000 baht, approximately 4,200 pounds. Each payment seemed reasonable individually, small compared to original investment, necessary to protect the larger investment already made. This was the nature of doing business in Thailand. Maya explained unexpected costs emerged regularly, bureaucratic systems required ongoing payments and patience, but ultimately the business fundamentals were sound, and these were temporary obstacles rather than signs of deeper problems. During this period, Maya also revealed she was having personal financial crisis, her mother was sick, and needed expensive medical treatment. She didn't want to burden Angus, but might need to take loan from the cafe's operating capital to help her family, would repay it from her share of cafe profits once business opened. Angus gave Maya 20,000 pounds, approximately 500,000 baht, as personal loan, keeping it separate from business investment, wanting to support his girlfriend during family crisis. Maya was tearfully grateful, said she would repay him as soon as possible, that he was kindest man she had ever known, that she was fortunate to have found both business partner and romantic partner in same person. The personal loan alongside the ongoing business complications created a dynamic where Angus was emotionally invested in Maya's well-being and financially invested in protecting his business investment. Both motivations pushed him to continue providing money even as the requests accumulated beyond his original budget. 7 months after meeting Maya, Angus had sent 330,000 pounds total. His remaining capital was 75,000 pounds. The cafe still wasn't open. The building purchase still wasn't complete. The return on investment he had expected within 6 months was nowhere visible. But Maya assured him everything was progressing normally for Thai business timelines, that patience was essential, that his investment was secure and profitable future was certain. What Angus didn't know during these 7 months was that Maya and her network were using his identity for additional fraud beyond the cafe investment scam. During legal paperwork creation, Angus had provided copies of his passport, bank letters confirming his financial status, utility bills from his condo, all the documentation that legitimate business setup would require. Maya's network had used these documents to open credit lines in Thailand using Angus's identity as guarantor to register him as director of multiple Thai companies without his knowledge, to create banking relationships that allowed them to move money through accounts appearing to have Angus's authorization. This secondary fraud was more sophisticated and harder to trace than the cafe scam. It used legitimate banking and corporate registration systems, created paper trails showing Angus's consent through forged signatures, established credit relationships that would eventually default and leave Angus liable for debts he never authorized. The scale of this secondary fraud wouldn't become apparent until much later, when banks and corporate registries began notifying Angus of debts and obligations he had no knowledge of, when his credit rating collapsed under weight of defaults on loans he never took, when Thai authorities began investigating corporate structures that listed him as director of companies involved in various illegal activities. 8 months after their first meeting, Maya stopped responding to Angus's messages. At first, the silence seemed like temporary communication problem. Maybe her phone was broken, maybe she was dealing with family emergency, maybe there was simple explanation. But days passed with no contact, then weeks, and Angus's attempts to reach her through every channel failed completely. He went to the cafe location. Empty. Locked. No sign of renovation work or business preparation. Neighbors said they hadn't seen activity there in weeks, that previous business had closed months ago, that nobody had been working there recently despite what Maya had been telling Angus. He went to the building they had supposedly purchased. Different owner entirely. The man had no knowledge of any sale process, had never met Maya or Angus or anyone connected to their supposed purchase, was confused about why foreigner was claiming to have bought his property. He went to lawyer's office, serviced office building, where Kun Som Chai had occasionally rented meeting rooms but had never had permanent space, where staff remembered Thai man who matched the lawyer's description but who hadn't been seen in over a month, who had paid cash for room rentals and left no permanent contact information or business registration. Angus filed police report. Tourist police were familiar with the scam pattern, said it was a sophisticated operation that had caught multiple foreign investors, explained that recovering money was nearly impossible because funds had been moved through multiple accounts and likely transferred abroad, that proving criminal fraud rather than just civil business dispute was difficult when victims had willingly transferred money and signed documents, even if documents were later proven to be legally meaningless. The police report triggered banking scrutiny. Banks where Angus held accounts flagged him for suspicious activity, froze some accounts pending investigation, informed him about the unauthorized credit lines and corporate directorships created using his identity. The secondary fraud created by Maya's network was now surfacing, making Angus appear complicit in financial crimes rather than victim of them. Thai Corporate Registration Office notified him he was listed as director of 7 companies, some involved in activities that violated Thai law, some that had accumulated debts and obligations now being attributed to him as registered director. His attempts to explain he never authorized any of this, never signed documents creating these directorships, never participated in these companies' activities were met with skepticism. The documents appeared legitimate, bore signatures that resembled his, included passport copies and personal information that suggested his involvement. Angus hired a different lawyer to help unwind the mess. This lawyer was legitimate, recommended by British Embassy, specializing in helping fraud victims, but could only confirm what Angus already suspected. Maya and her network had run sophisticated operation using business investment as primary fraud and identity theft as secondary exploitation, that his money was unrecoverable, that clearing his name from unauthorized corporate directorships and credit obligations would take months or years of legal work, that his initial investment of £330,000 had been amplified into potential liabilities of unknown scale through the identity theft component. 10 months after meeting Maya, Angus's financial and legal situation reached its full, devastating scope. His direct losses: £330,000 transferred to Maya and her network. His remaining capital: £75,000, insufficient for comfortable retirement in Thailand and inadequate for rebuilding life in Scotland. But the identity theft created additional damage beyond direct financial loss. Credit lines opened using his identity defaulted with debts totaling approximately £40,000. Companies registered in his name without his knowledge, accumulated business obligations and legal problems that made him appear criminally complicit in fraud rather than victim of it. Thai banks blacklisted him from opening new accounts or conducting normal banking activities until identity theft claims could be investigated and resolved. The legal fees for attempting to recover losses and clear his identity, £20,000, further depleted his remaining capital. His legitimate lawyer explained realistic expectations. Criminal prosecution of Maya and her network was unlikely given how carefully they had operated and how quickly they had disappeared. Civil recovery was impossible without identifying defendants' actual identities and locating assets that were certainly hidden or transferred abroad. Clearing his name from unauthorized directorships required proving forgery that would take extensive legal process he couldn't afford. Angus faced choice: remain in Thailand fighting legal battles he would likely lose while depleting his last capital, or return to Scotland with approximately £55,000 and accept that his retirement dream had been destroyed by a sophisticated scam that had exploited his business confidence rather than his loneliness or naivety. He chose return to Scotland, sold his condo furnishings, terminated his lease, bought one-way ticket to Glasgow, began process of rebuilding life at 61 years old with fraction of retirement funds he had accumulated over 43 years of work. Back in Glasgow, he moved into small rental flat in area he had worked to escape decades earlier, took part-time consulting work, helping young entrepreneurs start their businesses, tried to process how his business experience and careful approach had been insufficient protection against professionals who understood how to exploit confidence and competence rather than obvious vulnerabilities. His children were sympathetic but distant. His ex-wife expressed concern mixed with vindication. She had warned him about Thailand, had suggested retirement abroad was risky, had not been surprised when his plan collapsed. Other expats he contacted told similar stories: business investments that disappeared, Thai partners who vanished, sophisticated scams that targeted confident investors rather than obvious tourists. The shame of having been scammed was worse than the financial loss. Angus had built businesses, negotiated complex deals, evaluated hundreds of business opportunities during his career. His identity was wrapped up in being a smart businessman who understood how to assess opportunities and avoid fraud. Having fallen for a café investment scam and having his identity stolen through business documents he willingly provided destroyed his self-image as competent businessman, forced him to acknowledge that confidence had been liability rather than protection. Angus remained in Glasgow, trying to rebuild retirement he had envisioned before Thailand. His £55,000 generated modest investment income. His part-time consulting provided additional cash. He lived simply in small, flat, accepted that comfortable retirement had been replaced by continued work and financial stress that would persist indefinitely. He started blog warning other business-oriented expats about the sophisticated café investment scam and similar operations targeting confident investors in Thailand. The blog attracted attention from other victims, men who had lost money to similar operations involving hotels, restaurants, tour companies, real estate developments, always structured as legitimate business opportunities, always exploiting business confidence rather than obvious vulnerabilities. Maya and her network continued operating probably in different cities, possibly targeting different nationalities, certainly refining their techniques based on what worked with victims like Angus. The business investment scam was effective precisely because it didn't look like scam. It looked like legitimate opportunity, evaluated carefully by competent professionals. It appealed to victims' business experience. Rather than their ignorance, it used confidence as weapon rather than treating it as protection. Thai police occasionally arrested members of these networks, but operations were sophisticated and distributed ringleaders operated from abroad. Local participants were often low-level workers, easily replaced. Money flowed through complex banking structures designed to prevent recovery. And new operations emerged constantly as old ones were disrupted. For foreign investors like Angus, who came to Thailand seeking business opportunities, the lesson was expensive and humiliating. Business experience provided no protection against sophisticated fraud. The confidence made them more attractive targets rather than less vulnerable ones. Legal structures that appeared to protect foreign interests were often meaningless under Thai law. An identity theft component of business scams created liabilities extending far beyond direct financial losses. The café investment specifically targeted men like Angus, retired business owners who had capital and experience, who believed they could evaluate opportunities competently, who wanted business purpose alongside retirement leisure, who would invest substantial sums based on careful evaluation that confirmed what scammers wanted them to believe. Maya's professional presentation was the camouflage victims never suspected. Business opportunity was fraud because it was presented with competence that matched or exceeded their own, because women offering opportunity seemed intelligent and skilled rather than obviously seductive or helpless, because entire operation was structured to appeal to business judgment rather than exploiting loneliness or lust. 3 years after Thailand, Angus continued blogging and consulting, slowly accumulating small capital through work rather than investment, accepting that his retirement would be lifelong work rather than leisure he had planned. The £330,000 he lost represented not just money but years of accumulated work, not just financial loss but theft of retirement security he had believed was protected by his business competence. He never returned to Thailand, never dated seriously, never trusted enough to become vulnerable in business or romance after his experience demonstrated how thoroughly confidence could be exploited by people who understood that successful businessmen were often the easiest targets for sophisticated investment fraud disguised as legitimate opportunity. The business investment trap continued catching confident foreign investors because the fundamental appeal never changed. Men who had built successful businesses wanted to continue being businessmen in retirement, wanted purposes beyond leisure, wanted to believe their experience and judgment would identify opportunities others might miss. Scammers like Maya understood this psychology perfectly, structured operations to appeal to business confidence specifically, made competent evaluation lead to wrong conclusions. Through carefully managed theater that appeared legitimate because victims needed it to be legitimate to maintain their self-image as smart businessmen. For every Angus who lost hundreds of thousands, there were dozens who lost tens of thousands, hundreds who lost thousands accumulated losses that made business investment fraud one of Thailand's most profitable scam categories. One that specifically targeted the men who believed themselves most immune to being scammed, who lost most completely because their confidence prevented them from recognizing fraud until too late to protect themselves. If this story revealed how business confidence becomes vulnerability, how professional presentation disguises fraud, how sophisticated investment scams target successful businessmen specifically, how identity theft amplifies losses beyond direct financial extraction, I invite you to subscribe. There are more stories about business scams in Thailand, about confident investors who lost everything, about how experience provides no protection against professionals who understand how to exploit competence rather than obvious weaknesses. Thank you for listening to this difficult truth about how being smart about business makes you perfect target for business-based fraud.